with anybody who's been following the whole FTX getting licensed in the US for derivatives saga with the CFTC. He's kind of been Sam's right-hand man in helping to push that through, just because his background of running derivatives at Citi prior is kind of like acts like as a really good crossover. And so he's been a real close ally and kind of advisor to us in terms of navigating regulatory and how we kind of position the network going forward, and really trying to establish this DeFi lane for derivatives and kind of making Hero the go-to primitive for it. And so we're working on a potential panel with me, Chris, and Chris Giancarlo, who's a former CFTC chairman, to kind of do a simulation discussion around, if something like 2008 had happened in the derivatives markets, and just kind of the marketplace in general, in a Web3 world. And really a lot of the mission of what we're doing with Hero is so much based around, bringing real transparency to the derivatives landscape, and kind of getting away from this central point of failure issues that seem to persist. And every time there seems to be a major systemic issue in the market, it all kind of stems from some point in time where there's human error, or there's some central point that kind of fucks things up. And so we're working on that. It's not finalized yet, but we'll obviously keep everybody posted. But it should be a pretty exciting week for Solana as a whole, and then especially for Hero, we're going to get a lot of big looks there. So pretty excited.
I know that you've been quite outspoken about the fact that we're in a stage where there's all this innovation and trailblazing has happened. You can't expect things to work perfectly, and this is obviously speaking to the issues that Solana's had, because I suppose that is a good starting point for us to get going. I mean, it's received a lot of ridicule. I mean, there's a lot of people that have commented that it's in line with purposefully creating FUD around the ecosystem, because it does threaten a whole lot of stakeholders on other ecosystems. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but you've always said, listen guys, we're not going to have a perfect product. There's always going to be issues, and you guys have definitely drawn a line in the sand and said, listen, this is where we're going to die on this hill. We've been working on this thing for a number of years now, and I want to get into that. I want to kind of start at the beginning and just get onto that. But I think just to still wait for everyone to come in, your thoughts around Solana and the rest of it. I mean, it's pretty evident in your actions. Can you just comment on what it is that you've said before, and maybe whatever else in mind around it?
Absolutely. Like the first thing that I'll say about it is, kind of looking at it top down, just as technology and like the industry that we're all in. If everybody takes a step back and just kind of gets away from the speculative aspects of the crypto market, part of the reason that the volatility and that the opportunities are there are because, and this is so cliche, like everybody says it all the time, but it's pretty early in this big experiment that we're all in. And, like 10, 12 years in the context of a generational play is not too long. It's still super early, and that's why you get these opportunities, and it's why you guys spend time in this space. If you're a degen here, trying to trade these markets and stuff, and like that happens because the tech is so early, and like it's still like an unknown world. And if it was completely hardened and perfect and flawless, these opportunities wouldn't exist. Your volatility would kind of collapse to nothing. And like that part of what you're being paid in terms of risk transfer and to like participate in these ecosystems is the premium, the risk premium that you're taking for basically being a test pilot and being a part of these ecosystems. And so with that, we have to know that like these issues are going to come. And like I've always related it back, and Jedi, if this is what you're kind of referring to, is when I traded equities like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and really was focused in the whole NASDAQ stocks. Like it is like a complete parallel in what we're dealing with now. And like the and I can even tell you like even just like trading systems or like trading infrastructure when you were trading like this is like on big Nasdaq Nasdaq exchange on not NYSE. You would have times where if the market so much has had a blip in volatility and got busy, um, you'd be putting orders in, and they would maybe be stuck for could be stuck for 30 minutes or an hour. And suddenly out of nowhere, you'd be getting fills. Like I used to trade Cisco systems like crazy. I used to trade like 3 to 5% of the volume of it a day. And like the I would put orders in that the whole basically the whole all the pipes for these exchanges would completely bottleneck and freeze up and oftentimes crash. And I'd have probably like a million share order worth of orders of like Cisco in the marketplace. And like an hour later, suddenly I would start getting like massive fills. And sometimes it actually benefited me and sometimes it would absolutely crush me. But like I always knew at the end of the day the risk that I was getting into, and over time, like you kind of needed these imperfections in order to evolve to something that becomes hardened. And look at that, look at the evolution of it over just the last, 15, 20 years. It seems like a long time, but like, really from that point from like 2000 until maybe it was like 2004, 2005, like 4 or 5 years later, like that those markets just became like you could go 5 nines on those and just like it was like 99.999% uptime and has kind of been like that ever since. And you're dealing in a Web3 world that has a whole different rule set and in a whole different level of risk to it. But like I think that over time it's going to continue to harden, and you have to understand that like with the opportunity that why everybody's here and why everybody's so early comes, and with the opportunity for upside, it comes with those risks, and you got to be willing to accept it. And so I think that's part of it. And then the other part is like when we first got into Solana, we started working on top, building to it over a year ago. We really looked at the team and kind of looked at even like the background of Anatoly coming from, his background of Qualcomm and dealing in low latency messaging, which like, has tangential relationship to kind of how the market evolves. And then guys like Bartosz and Jordan Prince and some of the guys that we're really close with from the Solana ecosystem, like those are ex-Citadel guys. Like there was a very distinct Jump Trading, Alameda, it was a very distinct group that was working and very interested in building towards it to Solana and knowing over time it's going to harden. And now if you look at where things are at, there's been a lot of grants that were given out. I think, actually some of the stuff with Mango, like I know the Mango team was like, who's really, one of the best engineering teams in all of Solana, to be very honest. They were focusing a lot over the last couple of months on top of rolling their V4 on, building in some fixes to Solana Core. And then you also have what Jump has been doing with Fire Dancer, and Fire Dancer is really like this kind of safety net / wrapper that is almost going to act as a failover. And it God forbid there isn't another issue in Solana, and there's going to be issues. It's just how we have to deal with it. But what we're doing with Hero and how we're thinking about this is like this is something that we want to build. This is not a let's run this up over a year and then disappear. It's like we're trying to take a path that says like, how do we capitalize on building an ecosystem now, knowing full well that, that where we want this to be in 3 years, where we want this to be in 7 years, and how we want this network and ecosystem to grow to basically get to a point where it can become completely self-sustaining, be run by community governance, and like, and no longer have to worry about the issues that that could potentially be obstacles, with dealing with things like the L1. But I think over time those things are gonna become less and less of an issue, and you want to be here ahead of the curve and not wait till there are no longer issues before you start building, and that should give us a tremendous lead in terms of what we're doing.
Well, I mean, if you look at 2018, 2019, it was it wasn't that long ago, and already the whole face of this space has changed. Like we're in the middle of a bear market. I actually almost said a bull market, but we know we're in the middle of a bear
I
market.
think we're in the middle of like a long-term bull market. It's just a pretty steep short-term pullback.
I mean, it's we can joke about it. I mean, it's like it's really interesting because this is nothing like 2018, 2019 in terms of the critical mass of activity that's going on, and it just completely buys into what it is that you're saying, is that there's a whole lot going on. You've thrown around some big names with some serious bags and some serious commitment to the space. And I think from Blockmates' perspective, we're obviously speaking to a lot of projects, and we're getting a lot of inside perspective around what's going on in the space. And it's actually astounding. Like I said, it's very difficult to call it a bear market when in fact the activity that's going on under the surface is very, very bullish. And I'm not just saying that for the sake of this conversation. It's I mean, you and I have chatted about it already. It really is this huge influx of interest and the realization that this is in fact a space and an understanding and a narrative that people want to tap into. And it really is, it makes the .com part of, understanding what the internet was and could potentially look like child's play, in my opinion. And
Yeah, and it will, right? Over time, it's going to. There's just a lot of asynchronous, information flow. It's part of you guys being here, and part of being a part of this is like you're seeing it happen in real time, and like it's like being under the hood of a giant company, and like you get into a company and you're like, wait, this thing on the surface looks so solid and such a well-oiled machine. And then you get inside of it, like you get a job there and you're like, wait, this place is fucking chaos. And like it just the perception is so different from the outside. And like, look, it's not gonna, I you've heard me say this before. I always say it to my team, like, that ditch isn't gonna dig itself, right? And I think so much of this and so much of what we want to accomplish and kind of, as we grow HXRO as an ecosystem, is like, I would always encourage everybody who's a part of it. Like okay, so like, you bought HXRO tokens and like, you see all the great things that we're doing. It's like, ask yourself, like, how can you be a part of this ecosystem and provide value to it? Because like, we want this to evolve in a very meritocratic way. And the whole rewards alignment as things evolve and like how governance evolves, and it's just so important that people that are here are participating. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a highly accomplished Rust engineer to participate. It could be just it could be your activity in the community, just in the Discord. It could be how you interact socially otherwise, in like on Twitter and things like that. It could be helping to write articles. It could be just any way that you think you can provide value. I would encourage you to do more than that. And even in the context, just not only in the context of your participation in HXRO, but your participation in any ecosystem, if you really believe in the long-term opportunity that exists. And I think that's where it's kind of like, it's kind of like the sum of the parts thing. If everybody starts working together cohesively and not like, not be in this ivory tower mode where it's just like, hey, I bought some tokens, I think I got them cheap, I'm going to stake them, and like, why aren't things moving fast enough? And just like being an armchair quarterback, it's like, get involved. Like, that's part of the ethos of this whole, of crypto as a whole. And like anything that really has captured network effects, it's been because like you really have become a part of something larger than you. And like when you see the benefits that come from that, and you see the success that starts to happen when everybody comes together, it's even more I would say it's even more fulfilling and rewarding than just like getting a 3-bagger on something.
Okay, so I suppose we have a little bit of a disappointing turnout, but we were always going to be rolling the dice with the Sunday. But in light of what it is that you've just said, there is an intention from the hero community and from yourselves to put out some rewards for community members and participants that obviously attend these Discord stages. I mean, we'll do some spaces as well, but I wanted to obviously, the idea was just for everyone who's present here. Firstly, thank you for making the effort for attending. It's really cool to see you guys here, and just to kind of encourage the community that's on this Discord server to participate and then to reward those individuals. We'll let you guys know what that is, but we are going to take a snapshot, and there will be some kind of a reward that's going to come to you. There's a number of discussions that we'll have around a whitelist that I'll allow Gunny to comment on in a bit. And we'll have a couple of series around this whole thing, but the whole thing was to essentially build on more of a personal relationship around, this community that, I've been a part of for a very long time. I stumbled in on this server, on this Discord server, just by accident, really. And, I've been here for way too long. I've spent way too much time in this Discord, but that's been a blessing and a curse all rolled into one. And, and there's a reason why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because, this is my crew. This is my tribe. I've made some very good friends in this Discord server. And I've exchanged a lot of alpha with a lot of people here, and we've made some pretty good gains in this space, And then just to finalize this opening statement, this isn't financial advice. We're just talking about a project purely for entertainment purposes. I definitely don't, and I'm pretty sure Gunny doesn't have the qualification to give you guys financial advice, but I think whoever it might be, and just be responsible and take what we're saying here purely for entertainment purposes. So just kicking it off, Gunny, what is the underlying kind of like ethos at the moment that you guys, I mean, you've spoken about already, but how are you guys going to put that into practice around, this network that you're building and that you've, put all this effort into? And we'll talk about the network later, but just tell us about, what is the kind of like the long-term vision that you have?
Well, I think the first thing to historically, people's initial reaction is to think that Hero is just going to be like an engine with a trading platform on top of it, something that is like more analogous to just like, to what like DYDX is, or to what Mango or one of those other, other trading platforms that those guys actually just do perps. But what we built and the whole concept from day one, and really what brought in a lot of these big participants, including like Solana, Susquehanna, Jump, CTC, Alameda, Coinbase Ventures, like a lot of big players got involved here, and actually also committed development resources to the beginning, is to really build out a derivatives primitive that I would say that it is kind of analogous in ways to the original ideas of what Serum was. So the idea is that the model is very much like B2B2C. Like what we are focusing on building is the infrastructure and pipes that that kind of allow all of the risk, margining, settlement, data flow, everything that you would need to run a derivatives market. All is built through a series of protocols into the network, and then we expose various APIs, via SDKs, available SDKs to the marketplace, and then applications are coming to build on top of it. So as an example, the first one that was built was this, this anonymous team that built OpenHero. You can go to openhero.com, and right now, which is what is kind of the first UI based front end application that is being that is live on mainnet for the network. But over time, what we're going to end up seeing is a very wide breadth of applications that use derivative products, that have derivative products behind them. Like it, friction is one that we're, talking to. Convergence is another one that we recently announced. Convergence does like RFQ based derivatives, kind of packaging up more block style trades for that are RFQ based and then execute. And all of that bottoms out into Hero's liquidity, into Hero markets. Friction, will end up doing some various basis volts that as a starting point that will be all of that liquidity will bottom out into Hero markets. Open Hero, which is just that, it's an active trading UI. All of that liquidity bottoms out into the markets. So you get this mass unification of liquidity of different applications that are serving different purposes, which will allow various types of trading to go on. It's not just market makers that are kind of, leaning on each other and kind of just like taking paper cuts at each other with, a little retail in between. There's a full ecosystem that creates a real vibrant market, and that will come from market makers and then these various apps. And our take even beyond just the classic kind of derivatives, and just like right now we're just doing futures on BTC USDC, and so it's a perp, two weekly futures, two monthly futures, and then 4 quarterly futures behind it, plus all the calendar spreads that come in between those. But once you have, imagine a world in 6 months, 9 months, a year from now, where you have 30, 40 plus apps that have all built to this, and they're all facing various types of, users. You have an ecosystem of market makers and liquidity providers underneath. And then you kind of, and then you have kind of this more OTC, like we have some stuff that's being developed by some other teams around more kind of block OTC transactions, which is kind of like the chunkier flow that comes in. And you put all that together and you end up with a real vibrant market. But all of that volume, all of that liquidity bottoms out into Hero markets. And then if you are a participant in the market and you're a stake token holder, so it's kind of is one of the flywheels that goes back to how the reward systems work. 50% of every network transaction fee. And so in the case like right now, if there was a Bitcoin USDC, like somebody purchased one Bitcoin future, there's a fee that gets charged to that. That fee goes to the network. 50 cents of every dollar of that fee gets paid to stake token holders pro rata. So imagine a world in not too long where you're going to have many applications that are built on top. They're all kind of, if you look at it, if you looked at them individually, the liquidity you'd think was very fragmented, but they're all getting the advantage of this unified liquidity that they all can egress or ingress volume into, and then egress those markets out to their user base. And the network is benefiting from that, collectively by participating in the rewards. And then those rewards also, if you're in our parimutuel markets, those are getting paid out in ES Hero. And the idea over time is hopefully these applications are, also going back and like increasing their stake weights. And we want this ecosystem to be really eventually governed by, a very wide group of end users who are kind of the consumers that are using the applications, the teams that are building the applications, and then kind of the core like Hero Labs and teams like that have, and market makers, all coming together to build for this kind of common good and then help drive decisions forward over time. And that's kind of how the whole ecosystem is set up to work and to thrive. Yeah, I mean, think about it as like the real base layer of it really is a base layer kind of I mean, I guess it's more of like an L2 in the context of the crypto world or the blockchain world. But in terms of derivatives trading, it really is the base layer. Like the idea is that you have all this liquidity bottoming out. It's somewhat analogous to how, if you look at what the Chicago Mercantile Exchange actually works, which I'm sure not many people here understand this, but it actually has this kind of clearing and settlement part of its business called CME clearing. And then it has this matching engine, which is where all the order books exist. That's called Globex. And then it has all of these things called FCMs that are attached to it. And then those FCMs are kind of what facilitate all of the retail trading and all of the applications that get built. So it's kind of removed that FCM element, collapse the Globex and the clearing and risk functions together into a bunch of smart on-chain smart contracts, which is what we've done. And yeah, and then just like eventually, if we do this right, it'll be like having 20 DYDXs or 30 of them, all sharing liquidity universally. And when you get into parts of the market that are very still very nascent, like even in futures markets, when you start going out into duration, like doing trades that are 6 months, futures that are 6 months out, 9 months out, a year out, the liquidity is still paltry out there. And we're solving that by saying, look, at the base layer, you're going to have market makers, you have these spread permutations that help inject lots of liquidity into that end of the curve. And it's not just about the perp. And then as you build that up, like you're bringing in volume from many DYDXs or many different kind of dexes or exchanges that are participating in this unified liquidity network. And you get massive compounding effects on it. Liquidity is the most reflexive thing. Like more liquidity in a market begets tighter, more competitive markets, which will beget more liquidity. And eventually, as that grows and as you build trust with your users, it allows larger participants to come in and say, oh, there's enough liquidity here to get off a trade that isn't going to move the market 15%. There'll be a little slippage, or I can work my way in through some more advanced methods. And it allows them to participate in it. And that is something in the DeFi world that has not been solved yet. And, we think this model, which is unique to us, is really the path to establishing, Hero as kind of the go-to layer for a DeFi lane in the global derivatives landscape. And so you focus on perps and futures first. We build liquidity out there. We then add standardized options. We're doing these offshoot parimutuel markets that we can talk about a little bit as well, which are super unique. And there's a whole other segment of a whole gaming and sportsbook space that has taken a real interest in that, which is pretty interesting. And all of that liquidity, all of those fees, all cycling back full value accrual to the network and to stake token holders and to people that are participating in governance and participating in different functions of the network to make it work.
So one of the shows that we did, well, one of the streams that we did, is that we actually asked the question, what is wrong with Hero? Like what could go wrong? What are the issues? And I'd like to ask you that question. What do you see as being the potential, maybe not so onerous in the question, but what do you think the challenges are that you guys need to overcome? And also, what do you see as being wrong right now with Hero that you would like to improve on, or maybe you just accept that that's just something that you guys have sitting next to you, and I'm not entirely sure what that looks like. So can you share those thoughts with us?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think from the technology perspective, still very early, but what I can say is that we have taken extra time and have moved cautiously, even in the context of our beta of the Hero beta right now, having pretty stringent capital blocks on it. But have thought through a lot of the things that, because of our collective experience in the traditional markets, we know there are many elements on the risk side of things that in the traditional world that work very well. They just happen to be not built into smart contracts. And that could be things like customer protections or market maker liquidity protections, or just basic things like making sure that there's no one contract where any one participant can be over a certain percentage of open interest. And like there's just these like basic things that if you haven't been in the traditional space you would never think through, but they're requirements for us, and they're either built in or they're on our roadmap to be built in before we really start expanding things. So all of that said, like we could do all of those things and we can make something airtight and um, and be audited on an ongoing basis and clear audits and then still have a hiccup.
Mm.
And we always have to be prepared for that. And I think that's just like the nature. Again, it goes back to the first thing that we talked about. It just comes with the territory, and it's like the risk of what you're being compensated for is partially that. And what I can tell you is that we're exhaustively using every tool and resource that we can to try to mitigate that or prevent it from happening. And I think the reality is that you're not going to know it until if there is a black hat that finds an exploit.
Yeah.
You're not going to know it until the size of the ecosystem is massive and like there's a real reward on the table for them. But like even something that is unfortunate that happened to Mango, like that that exploit was actually in their Discord in March. And I think maybe they just underestimated you know the potential detriment of it. And
Clearly.
that wasn't even a hack, right?
Yeah.
And look at this guy that pulled this off. Like, I hope he goes into jail and rots. And like these guys, the Mango guys, don't deserve that, and the ecosystem doesn't deserve it. And it's like it ends up being a black eye for everybody. It's really hard, and we have to overcome it. Like when you go and talk to big professional trading firms that are building to us, and like it makes them makes their hearts skip a beat. And you gotta just it's like you have to start over with the whole trust factor again. Um, so it like things will happen over time. Like it is part of the duty that we've taken on as a community and as builders in this space to try to mitigate it. But these are risks. I think that's one. I think secondly is we do force the foundation wants to reach a point of sufficient decentralization at some point between now and in the future, and making sure that the elements of the network and the ecosystem are running such that you have a low probability of a bad actor being able to come in and like do something through governance that could send the network down the wrong path. And so we've been very sensitive to that. Like there's just and it was one of the reasons that we did this, that the foundation did this strategic round early and got some of these, professional teams in. It wasn't to like, oh, like, fuck the retail. It was like, well, no, like it's completely the opposite. We need to build something that can be very comfortable for retail applications to build on top of over time. And to do that, like you have to have these controls in place. And then that leads to the next thing, which is just regulation. And I have been very vocal and am working very proactively, not just with the US, but like just globally on it, like what are the things that are needed and like what are kind of the best practices that are needed to kind of showcase Hero and to show global regulators that as we grow, because as we grow, it's going to get on the radar and it's going to be more and more on the radar, that like this thing can function, and the benefits that come from an on-chain, from on-chain infrastructure, really mostly around transparency and the disintermediation or dispersion of like large systemic risks, having programmatic rules based principles that are baked into the network and to network governance, and just like all of putting all these things together and showing regulators that there is a real there's real infrastructure out there that is being taken seriously by real players that actually is serving a greater good for its entire community and for its ecosystem, and can really become a part of, an alternative solution in the, in the whole global derivatives landscape. And so I think that third piece is something that is going to take years, to be honest. Like it's something that as we scale up, we're going to confront various obstacles there, and we're trying to get, ahead of that now, but in a proactive way that doesn't hinder innovation. And I like that was part of the reason that we brought a lot of these teams in that have, really good names and real good domain, very deep domain expertise. And even the core team with Hero, like, there's guys from Citadel, there's guys from big prop firms, there's guys, ex-Goldman guys, and then there's like just straight up crypto, centric degens there too. So it's kind of the right mix of everybody, we think.
So thanks for sharing that. I mean, I find it really interesting that you've obviously got the perspective from the TradFi thing, and we've spoken about this extensively, within the blockmates kind of, the discussions that we have is that, like we've said, like Ponzi's are great. We all love a good Ponzi and we all like to get in and cash out, but the real value of what it is that's going on in the space right now, make no mistake, is that we need to bring those TradFi financial, games that are being played into the on-chain space. And if you don't believe that that's going to happen, then you are extremely naive and you will get left behind. I mean, the most successful protocols right now are the ones that are essentially replicating what's going on out there. And, GMX and DYDX and all those guys, they're the ones who are actually rocking and rolling this bear market. And guess what, guys? There's a reason. And that's where we're going right now. And
we're doing this. We're not doing anything too different than that, other than building something that has a much wider opportunity set.
Absolutely 100% correct. Now, so for me, and this is something that's I think needs to be kind of explored quite extensively, is there's this whole staking thing. There's for me, when you were talking earlier on, and you know me, I'm always going to be brutally honest, irrespective. It's just in my nature, and that is that I was thinking, shit, you've got all these big players that are in here and they've bought in early. They're going to dump on us, dude. Like, these guys are going to fucking dump on us. Like how are you guys mitigating that? And how are you guys essentially playing that mindful process? Because I know that you've been very mindful about this, but we haven't really chatted about this. So yeah, fire away. I'm really curious to hear how you...
I mean, first of all, that strategic round, like there is 100 and like, this is not even in the, like, you're going to see later this week, because they're going to end up getting staked. So but even that strategic round,
are you giving us alpha now? Is that what this is now?
I don't know if it's alpha. I don't think it is.
But is alpha. Come, let's pretend that it is alpha, because people might be nodding.
I mean, there's about 120 million Hero.
Yeah.
That will be locked up for, it slightly varies, but somewhere between 1.5 and 2 years, and then it gets released as ES Hero. So it gets released to the strategic round as ES Hero, which they will then either take and restake, which most of them will, or they can start claiming it. And even when they claim it, it is like a linear daily unlock over a year. Good. So there's some level of like, just that's not even in staking yet, because those are all being transferred as like what are called, like, these are like, they're actually locked tokens that have unlock schedules on them, and then they unlock into this ES Hero. But those are going to get distributed and then staked in the next week, and like, you're going to see right off the bat that, like, between that and what's being staked currently, like, what is that, like, it's going to end up being 15% of the entire billion Hero float. And then founders and seed token holders are collectively about 40%, and like those aren't coming unlocked. At least it starts to unlock technically in a year, but it's all getting it's all either going to be staked or it's just going to be held. Like one thing that founders have agreed to do is not stake. We want to stake on a only when it is not dilutive to the ecosystem, and it's more important right now to us that uh, that ecosystem participants, do have hero token and are staked to the network so they can participate than it is for us to stake our tokens and capture yield off it. So we're going to come up with some formula that we will stake tokens like at a much later date, but we're not selling anything. I can tell you that, and we never have sold anything. And so there is a very considerable portion that like it's effectively not even there on the, it's not going to be on the market for a long time. And then, between that and just like what's circulating otherwise, like the whole model, all of these firms, like they want to have interest in this because it really is like this return to kind of like a member-owned exchange class / clearing organization, which is like how the CME, this is how we all talked about it, even at that dinner. Like, this, even like when you look at the CME and its pre-public days, it was member owned, and like members got to make decisions, and depending on the level of seat that you owned or how many seats that you owned, it basically gave you a vote in the ecosystem, which was like self-regulated and self-governed. And what this is really a return to that. And like the positions that these people have taken are not such that they're like the amount of money that they can make off of it relative to what they make trading is like, it's not a ton, unless, see some absolutely like nuclear move in hero, which I'm sure everybody would, like to see one day, but we're not, we're not we're not talking about that. And you really, their biggest incentives as builders and as participants and having real alignment is having their tokens in, locking their hero, which everybody here knows, like is, when you lock hero, pending on the length of time that you lock, you do get a multiplier effect, which is kind of like that came from that whole VE curve concept. And you're getting rewarded in USDC. And it's like, it's basically like between that and some of the volume incentive tier rebate reward programs that are going into this, into the market in the next few weeks, like the incentives are way greater to stake and hold and increase stake weight, for the foreseeable future. And and that is no different whether you're a professional trading firm or you're a large, anonymous trader, or you're a small retail trader that is, looking to participate. Like I could say comfortably that in the next, it doesn't mean that people aren't going to come in and sell. Like it's just the token's been around for 3 years, and there's some, teams that have early lockups that, have gotten tokens and they want to get out. But, part of, I think, what you see when you see some of these moves in the token, it's because there's not a ton of liquidity there yet. And it's another thing that the foundation is going to, work on improve through protocol and liquidity and things like that. So, I hope that it kind of answers the question.
Yes, you have answered the question. And it basically comes down to the fact that you guys elected to dox yourselves, the fact that you've been very open and honest about a whole lot of stuff. And
we've done it as,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been very important to us. And, and we've always looked at it like, we kind of are, for lack of a better term, like as founders, you kind of have to be captains on a ship, and you got to end up being the last one that can be, that's going to be off, or the, which is really what we, how we would measure success is as you move to a more decentralized kind of DAO and community driven governance, that we become less and less. Yeah, we become less and less. Yeah. So Jedi, if I'm catching you right. So Yeah, part of doxing and everything is so we actually also as founders are we so we're committing of hero that we have uh we're committing to the foundation or to the network um through various programs 100 million of our hero
Mm.
um to the network. It actually is going to be set up like on a super long-term loan. Um but like it'll be over, I think it's over 7 years, something like that. But the first thing that we're doing is we've committed 10 million Hero to like an early bootstrap reward program to try to get Hero into the hands of many more network participants early. So, you've seen me talk about like the snapshot. It's important that you get staked. If you own Hero now, that you stake it, or if you don't own it, like then you're going to pick some up and stake it. Um, so beginning like this is the first period, so between 10:15 and 10:31, so at some point between basically now and the end of the month we're going to take a snapshot. We're not going to announce the snapshot because we don't want to have kind of mercenary dumping going on, which doesn't benefit anybody and doesn't kind of create alignment with what we're trying to do. But you will get there is 10 million Hero basically over 6 months that is going to be distributed out as ES Hero rewards to stake token holders on a pro rata basis. So every 2 weeks, we're going to take a random snapshot. And on that snapshot, you will get distributed your pro rata share of ES Hero. You can then take that ES Hero and claim it, which if you claim it, it unlocks at 1/365th per day. Or you can take it and stake it, which is kind of what the intention is, because we want people growing their stake weight and their governance weight in the network, and trying to kind of disperse that as widely as possible. And so that's the first thing we're doing. That's all coming from founders. So, and then the second thing we're doing is we're committing 50 million Hero to a volume tier incentive rewards program. Again, that's coming from founders. That the foundation will manage. And that is we wrote about this a couple months ago. It's called like a road to a trillion. And basically what it is it's set up in 1,000 billion dollar notional volume epochs. And each epoch, there is a specific amount of Hero that actually is it comes out again as ES Hero, so it's got this escrowed feature on it. And what that does is every day, depending on your pro rata share of the trading volume of the entire network, so you will be allocated to your wallet a share of you'll be paid out in ES Hero, and then ideally you want to take that ES Hero and stake it, because staking again gives you 50% of 50% of every dollar of Hero and USDC fees that are paid to the network are split pro rata across all state token holders. So if you can kind of, I wish I had a way to visually show it, but it does create a pretty good flywheel. So your trading volume, you're basically getting this implied rebate via the rewards that you're receiving, plus you're getting this volume tier reward that's paid in additional ES Hero, which then you can take and stake and build up your stake weight, which will allow you to get a greater reward from the overall trading fees. And so all of that is kind of is coming from founders, and it really is a testament to our hopefully one testament to our long-term goals and long-term belief in the ecosystem. And again, we're setting it up so it's not set up for mercenaries to come in and trade it up and then dump it. I think there's enough throttling in there between ES Hero and just how everything is set up that it really doesn't make sense to necessarily do that. So it should give everybody who's participating, and it should give you incentive to participate in the applications that are built to the network. If you're an automated trader, to build strategies to the network and participate. if you're just a regular user, using the applications that are there, that are available in the marketplace, and then being able to be actually rewarded for it. Something that doesn't exist in the traditional world. Like, as much as we all love FTX, you can't go to FTX and expect to get a rebate, a big fat rebate every day, paid to your wallet based on your trading volume. And I mean, you get some fee rebate, but like you're not you're only benefiting from your own. You're not benefiting from the
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 collective.
benefit of the collective of like
Mm.
all volume that's traded. And so here you're getting a benefit from your own volume, plus you're getting a benefit from all volume that's traded in the network. So even like the big trading firms, like once they're in and they're active, like all of that volume, you as a stake token holder get to participate in rewards from that volume as well.
Okay, so we're chatting to close to an hour, and I want to continue with this discussion in another session. And I think there's quite a lot there for us to think about. And I obviously want to create continuation around this for a show that we'll do during the course of the week. We just need to obviously come up with a time. I'd like
Yeah, I'm
to.
totally happy to do that, and I'm happy to just hop in whenever.
Yeah,
I mean,
we could do that.
the
We could do
more
that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
the more we can talk to, the more I can talk to people in the community.
Gunny, the thing that I'm really picking up on, on a very genuine level, is that you actually are, when you are super busy. I mean, I think there has been quite a lot of stress in putting all these dominoes in place, and before you flick the first one and you watch this whole thing, just kind of like escalate into something I think quite remarkable from my. I really believe that it will. You seemingly having the time of your life. I mean, that's the feeling that I'm getting.
I'm living, man. That's for sure. I'm definitely living. Like there's look at I'm 48 years old, and I've been grinding for 30 years now. So
Yeah.
um but I could say that crypto has given me, and as someone that has basically been in trading, like I started on the floor of the board of trade when I was 18 years old, and kind of think I've seen it all in the trading world since then. Um, it, Crypto has introduced more volatility than anything I could imagine.
Totally.
Like just to life in general. But yeah, you know what, I'm so damn passionate, and I think our team is so passionate about the core team, just like and the parties that have been active with this. Like this has been a kind of like it's taken a village to push forward, and and I feel very responsible to the ecosystem, and like you said, like there's only 28 people in here, but if we just got to stay consistent. There'll be 270, and then there'll be 2,700 in here before we know. And
I,
I
be, I,
think it just starts
I
with
do,
this
be,
with
I
this.
do, I do believe that, and I have this nasty habit of calling things early. I think quite a few people in this room will know that, and I know that I'm
Yeah.
this one early, and it is early. I mean, it really is. I
No,
know.
look, we all feel an obligation to to people that are a part of this,
Yeah, yeah,
and I've I've been a part of other communities and seen them thrive, and I've seen ones that have been absolute garbage. And in a long time, I've also it I'm I've gotten very good at like my spidey sense going up if something doesn't feel right. And
mm,
I do feel that as a part of the foundation early, like an obligation to the early participants, and and I hope that it reciprocates. And it has to be very much like a give and take type of relationship, and I want to try to keep it flat in the sense that like I want to do these more, and I'm happy to just like I've been thinking the last couple of days I should just like go into these chats and just come up on stage and just sit and work, and people want to hop in and chat. Like I think that the faster that we can get discourse going and people asking
yeah,
questions and
be cool.
talking about ways they can participate, like you'll capture a lot of very positive things from that. So
So I'd like to open the floor to anyone who'd like to come up and ask Gunny a question. Um, it's open to you guys. Just raise your hand and don't be shy. You're
they're
very
shy.
welcome to come up here.
Oh, we got one.
Rictus is keen. Here we go. Rictus, you're up.
Hey,
Welcome.
Rectus.
Really excited for HXRO, to be honest. And
Thank
I
you.
want to say that I do like the tokenomics so far, especially with USDC rewards.
Yeah.
But pretty much like as a full-time degenerate, what I've been thinking that what might dilute the value of the token. So you've said that you are dependent basically on many other teams expanding on HXRO as a base layer, in a sense for derivatives.
You mean in
And
terms of like applications that will build on
yeah,
top of it? Yeah.
yeah. So what I've been thinking is, how is that gonna work? For example, new teams are gonna build new products and they can launch their own tokens, or is it all kind of gonna go through HXRO like it is
It
now?
it doesn't like it if they launch their own token, that's fine, but they're still paying a fee to the network.
Hmm.
So like the network, like let's use an example of the pari-mutuels. That's like everybody's known historically that you know there was hero trade, which was that the pari-mutuel and had the tix wix options and stuff. And actually that's going through, just as a side note, going through a rebrand right now, and that actually is going to plug into the network as a network operator. um and the the way that those end users, whether or not that application has its own token or not, it doesn't matter, because um, and just like we'll take the case of the pari-mutuels, there is a base fee that the network gets regardless, and so that fee always gets paid to the network. So and like one example of how we've done it with applications is an application would pay 3% if they want to pay the network in USDC, but if they want to pay the network in HXRO, then it's 1.5% to them. Or it's a 1.5% fee, which then that application can basically take that spread, and it would increase the revenue that they would take. So there, right there alone is a reason for them to basically always be in kind of buying hero and then using it to pay fees back to the treasury. Um, so that's a real basic way that I don't see a way that it becomes dilutive necessarily for um, for the network to have a an application that has its own token built on top of it.
Okay, yeah, that actually sounds good to me because yeah, I was thinking how much you're gonna accrue from the teams that are actually launching the product.
Yeah, and there may be other, like I look at it actually as, because those teams, in part of the way that we set this up, there's an aggregation of so those teams will earn part of that volume incentive tier reward because of the volume that they're pushing through, the notion of volume, like collectively that they're pushing through their application. And so they ideally then, you want to, they'll either have the opportunity to pass that through to their end users, like some portion of it or all of it, or just keep it for themselves, whatever works for their economics. But the idea is that the 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 network is always getting a fee, which is always going to benefit the collective network. There's not going to be an instance where somebody can get their token, uh, at least that we've thought through, um, somehow make it dilutive to us if they're building on top of it. It should only benefit.
Yeah, and as for like liquidity, for example, I don't know, someone launches new product on HXRO.
Hmm?
Do they basically try to provide their own liquidity, or do they turn to the big boys you have on your side, for
Oh,
example?
that's the benefit of it, is that they're actually, like, HXRO is the liquidity. It's the base layer has the liquidity embedded in it. So
Mm-hmm.
they're plugging in because they don't have to go source their own liquidity. Part of the value prop of the network is the liquidity is there. It's turnkey. So they just have to go plug in. And their focus is really on UI UX and driving users to their app. But depending on the markets they want to connect to, like if let's say it's a DEX that wants to do futures, and they plug in and to the futures markets that are available in Hero Network, and like there's market makers that are there already because they're participating at like all of those. That marketplace all lives in the primitive. So regardless of which app you're connecting from, you're gonna see the same liquidity. Does that make sense?
Okay, so like even if they launch some
It's all
kind of
unified.
degen product.
Yes. A
Okay.
random degen product that was just like a Jupiter Ag kind of swap looking Uniswap looking thing that was just like that figured out a way to wanted to utilize Hero and Hero's risk engines and everything else, and they just wanted to make a straight degen simple product. It would be the same liquidity that Open Hero has, and that Convergence has, and that Friction has, and that every other app that's using Hero sees. And the liquidity just is additive. So at the more liquidity that participates, it all gets unified and everybody benefits from it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think that's it for me, Gunny. Thank you
Okay, great.
for the answers.
You got it, Rick. Anytime, man.
Give your 2 cents worth. Maybe you want to moan about something.
Who wants to bitch? Come up here. Who wants to bitch? Come on up.
Doesn't look like anyone else wants to come up. That's fine. We've taken a snapshot of today's session, and yeah, we'll do another one during the course of the week. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks Gunny for your time to chat to you, and yeah, man, just really appreciate this community that you guys have allowed us to come and kick the cans around and trade and degen and all the fucking crazy shit that's gone on in here over the last year and a half. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, let's keep it going, and
Damn right.
I love what's going on in the pit, and let's just everybody stay active, and and just keep working towards just building for the greater good of everybody here. And last thing I'll say is everybody's input is important, like good or bad. You have something to say. There's no it doesn't mean that we're always going to agree, but I just want everybody to know they have a voice here. And I am pretty much like always available, and just ping me in Hero chat or ping me in the pit, and let's chat, and I'm going to try to do a hell of a lot more of these, because I actually like being up here, and I think it's valuable for everybody. So